Hey everybody, Jake here and welcome to the hobby. In today's video, I answer some of your guys' viewer submitted questions on Pokemon card collecting, investing, and anything else you guys might wanted to have an answer on. Hopefully I can sway you in one direction or another, and even if you disagree with me, hopefully this will be some fun discourse. We are going to answer a lot of questions in today's video. I'm going to try to go very fast because there were a lot of questions submitted. If you wanted to hear a specific question answer, check out the description because I will have all of the questions timestamped. Make it a little bit easier on you guys. So let's get started right away. First question comes from Erdon, who asks, "Hey Jake, do you expect there to be a massive drop in the value of graded PSA cards when the massive wave of PSA orders are fulfilled over the next 8 to 10 months? And a little bit of yes and no. I do think that there will be a retraction in some PSA graded card prices. That is totally fine. What you guys have to understand is that while there is going to be a lot more PSA graded cards on the market for Pokemon cards over the next year or two, at the same time, there's just a ton more collectors in the hobby than before as well. So while there's more PSA graded cards, there's 2 or 3 times as many collectors looking for PSA graded cards. So they sort of even out. Is it possible for some card prices to drop? That is a definite yes. I just don't think prices are going to retract to a new low or some point. For example, a 1996 PSA 10 Charizard sold in February for $300. Do I expect PSA 10 Charizard to drop back down to $300? It's just not going to happen. Those price points are never going to go back down to those levels. Could we see some retractions? Yes. They're just not going to drop to the level that you might expect. Could some cards be cheaper? That is totally fine. Prices sort of ebb and flow. It's not a straight up, you know, it's not over time. They just slowly grow up. There will be dips and there will be climbs, but overall I expect most of these card prices to steadily grow because the hobby is just growing with it. So there's just not a reason for me to feel bearish in the Pokemon collecting market right now. Next question comes to us from Polaris2694. Asking, if you're investing in Pokemon, how do you know when to sell? As in, how do you develop an exit strategy for your Pokemon investments? That's a pretty personal question. Everyone's going to be different. It just depends on your goal. I am never going to fully exit out Pokemon. You know, I'm never going to wipe out my Pokemon card collection. That's just not something that's ever going to happen. I enjoy my collection way too much for me to ever detach myself from it. And it just depends on you. If you only think about it monetarily, set yourself a timestamp, say exactly 5 years. Don't overthink the ebbs and flow of Pokemon card collecting. You're just going to keep yourself up at night. Just set yourself a time, say exactly 5 years from today, you'll sell. And that's your exit strategy. Don't try to overthink it. That's my biggest advice. The more you overthink it, the more worried you're going to be. And that's not the way that you want to live healthily. I don't overthink any of these things. I focus mainly on just enjoying myself and having fun. It is a hobby. Even though I take this hobby seriously, at the same time, I never forget to enjoy myself and have fun. So yeah, just set yourself a time, maybe 5 years from now, maybe 10 years. Some people have set a 30-year exit strategy, and that's totally fine as well. Give yourself a timestamp and sell it whenever you reach that point, and you're set to go. Alyssa asks, "Hi Jake, with all that's about to drop soon, some of us are on a tight budget. Which of the new stuff would you recommend going towards more?" So yeah, I totally understand you. Believe it or not, I actually have a very tight budget when it comes to Pokemon cards. I don't really freely buy a lot of stuff. I do have some fringe money or fun money that I'm allowed to spend on something frivolous, but in general, I'm very calculating when it comes to what I'm purchasing, and I'm sure most of you guys are. We are in a tough economy right now where it's really difficult to budget yourself for something luxurious as Pokemon cards. So what should you really purchase? For me, I definitely recommend you purchase at least one Shining Legends Elite Trainer box. I think that's going to be a fun item to both open and hold. That is going to be probably the most solid item yet. I haven't really seen anything from the 2021 announcement that has really wowed me. I'm still waiting for it. There's a couple of items, and I'm a sort of like an instinctual collector, right? Sometimes when I see something in the back of my mind just clicks and I know that's going to be a good product. I just feel it. Some of those products have been done really well in the past, would be like Mario Pikachu or the Scream promos. But I haven't seen anything like that in 2021 yet. As soon as something really wows me, I will definitely let you guys know. I have some extra savings saved up just in case something really big shows up and I really want to go deep into it. But right now, so far, besides a Shining Legends Elite Trainer box, I'm not really seeing anything from 2021 that has really wowed me yet. I have some Shining Legends pre-order, I have some Battle Styles pre-order, a little bit of everything for me. But yeah, still waiting for that really big drop to happen. Next question comes to us from Bradley, who asks, in terms of being vintage, do you think that collectors will look at 2020 cards in 2030 the same way that we look at 2010 cards now? So that's a very good question. And in terms of collectibles, time is definitely relative. The longer you go for a hobby, the more people tend to not care about the decades as much, right? Look at something like comic books or baseball cards. 10 years ago for baseball cards and comic books is nothing. That's why a lot of those other collectible hobbies, they look at 40 or 50 years ago before they say it's vintage or something like that. And the same thing's probably going to happen with Pokemon, where as the hobby grows longer, and Pokemon is still in its infancy, it's a very new brand and IP and hobby for all honesty, but those 10-year decades, the farther out you go, they're not going to matter as much. So 2010 is a big deal to us because that's like half of the hobby's lifespan. But in 2030, it's different, right? Those 10-year decades don't matter as much. So I don't think 2020 will be considered vintage yet. In 2030, it might be considered vintage in 2040, right? So as time goes by, I would expect those earlier years to be considered more vintage. In 2030, I would say anything from 2015 or before would be vintage. I think that's good to look at the half-life of a collectible as vintage. I think that's pretty normal, so I hope that answers the question. Next question, Ashlyn asks, what cards are overvalued right now? Great question, Ashlyn. I know a lot of time we talk about underrated Pokemon cards, but we don't really talk about overrated Pokemon cards very much. And I guess I would say an overrated Pokemon card would be one that I think a lot of people are talking about right now, that I think the hype will probably die down and maybe they'll lose a little bit of value over time. And some cards that are coming to the top of my head right now that I think are probably going to be considered overrated would be the Champions Path Charizard. That include the Shiny Charizard V as well as the Hyper Rare Charizard V Max. Currently they're floating around right $350 per card, and I think they still could decline a little bit more. They might decline down to as low as $200, especially with all of the amazing sets that are going to be coming out in 2021. I don't think a lot of people are going to be talking about Champions Path anymore. And once people move on to the next set, prices are slowly going to decline on Champions Path. Now, that doesn't mean that it won't ever climb. I think it will probably drop down to, like I said, as low as $200 per the Chase Charizard, but over time they'll probably climb back up, very similar to Hidden Fates. It did a very similar dip down and then it slowly climbed back up, but right now probably Champions Path, a little bit overrated. They'll probably drop down a little bit more until they start to climb back up. Next up, Shaliv asks, how do we assess the premium price of PSA 10s over 9s? In some cases, PSA 10s are being sold at 4 times to 5 times what 9s are. How do we tell which cases make sense and which it doesn't? That is a great question. It's very tricky, I'll admit. It's not completely a science. You don't always, it's not always like 4 times more expensive than PSA 9s or whatever the case. Sometimes it's a lot closer to PSA 9, and it really depends on the population of PSA 9s compared to PSA 10s. Some of the very hard cards to get PSA 10s of tend to be very expensive. Some example of hard cards to get PSA 10s of, I would say, would be Typhlosion 17. That's a classic example of an extremely difficult card to get a PSA 10 of. Another one would be XY Evolution's Charizard. That is a card that is modern and it's very hard to get a PSA 10 of. You could send in 40 pack fresh XY Evolution Charizard and not get a single 10. That is how difficult it is to get one. So they command a significantly higher price than PSA 9. I think like a PSA 9 XY Evolution Charizard would probably go for $300, $400 right now. Don't quote me on that. But a PSA 10 could go for as much as like $8,000 because it's such a hard card to grade and so many people want it. So what I'm trying to say is, it's not a science, it's not easy to tell. You gotta sort of use your intuition. Just depends on how difficult a card is to get a 10 compared to a 9. Next up, we have Kelly, who asks, which Sun and Moon set do I think will be the best long-term investment? Oh, that's a fun one. I think everyone's been asking about Sun and Moon. Honestly, I've always touted that the tag team sets are great. Those would be Team Up, Unified Minds, Unbroken Bonds, and Cosmic Eclipse. All of the booster boxes from the Team Up tag team era are really, really solid. But of course, they're very modern. A lot of them are getting reprinted soon. Cosmic Eclipse is being reprinted. Unified Minds is being reprinted. And that's because of how popular they are. Long term, I think they are great products to be held because people are going to love tag team cards 5, 10, 20 years down the line. But right now, I would say the safest bet for Sun and Moon era sets would probably be Burning Shadows. Burning Shadows has a hyper rare Chase Charizard in it, and it's just past the cups of being reprinted. Burning Shadows is just old enough that I don't think it'll ever be reprinted, so it's in that sweet, safe spot where a booster box has not jumped crazily in price yet, and it could have all the potential there. It's all there that the booster box set for Burning Shadows could really start to climb. So I would say if you want to be on the safe side, Burning Shadows, but if you're on more of the fun, risky side, then all of the tag team sets are really solid. Next up, we have Vadim, who asks, looks like Greninja is the most popular Pokemon based on votes for this year. Does it mean that Greninja is the most popular Pokemon with fans, not investors and collectors? Could that also mean that in 20-year grown-up fans will be chasing current Greninja card? This is also something I've thought about when the vote came out and Greninja was number 1. And I think you hit the nail on the head there, Vadim. And the idea is that they're fans, they're not investors or collectors. People who are fans of Greninja might purchase a Greninja card somewhere down the line, but at the end of the day, Charizard is always going to be the chase card for the TCG. He was there at the start, and I don't think that's really something that we can change at this point. It's just going against the force of nature at this point. Charizard will always be the chase card. I don't think that's ever going to really change. There's just too much momentum. Everyone knows Charizard, even if you're not a fan of the TCG. And I get, even though I'm not a Charizard fan, even my hand shakes when I pull a Charizard card. So yeah, you could definitely purchase a couple of Greninja cards and see how well they do down the line. Greninja cards are not super expensive. They're actually very affordable. It's low risk. There's some solid reward on the upper end. But no, I don't think that Greninja is ever going to be like a main pull for the TCG even down the line. Next up, we have Mark, who asks, what are my thoughts on the recent black and white boom? Many booster boxes from black and white eras have skyrocketed, and a lot of the full arts and secret rares have gone up by quite a lot. Is this like a Wizard of the Coast boom trickle down? So, sort of. I would say that Pokemon has done extremely well in pretty much every single category. It doesn't really matter what you collected at the start of this year, you probably did really well. If you purchased vintage sets, vintage singles, single cards, graded cards, XY booster boxes, black and white booster boxes, it didn't really matter too much what you bought. They all sort of went up together. And I wouldn't really call it a trickle down because let's say an XY base set booster box, if you purchased one of those, you did killer as well. So it wasn't so much just black and white. It's just everything related to Pokemon has done well rather than one particular era. So if you enjoyed Pokemon at all and you purchased any booster boxes that was printed before 2015, you probably did super well this year. It didn't really matter what singular item. I know black and white did exceptionally well, but so did pretty much every other set. So I would say, yes, it all went up together, so which is really cool. I like that you didn't really have to overthink too much on it. As long as you were buying something, you probably enjoyed yourself. Next up, we have Mike, who asked, do you think there will be a Shiny Star V equivalent set in North America, or do you think some of the Shiny Chase cards from that set will only ever be in Japanese? Yes, we will have a equivalent English set for Shiny Star V, and that is our Shining Fates set, which is coming out in February. A lot of people are already super hyped for this set because they know how solid shiny Pokemons do. But to jump off of Mike's question, a lot of people have been asking, do I think the prices for Shiny Star V will drop once Shining Fates comes out? And here's the thing, and this is a well-known secret in the hobby. Japanese sets do way better than English sets. If you look back at all the previous Japanese sets that are related to the special sets, like say, for example, for XY Evolution, we have Japanese CP6. For Hidden Fates, we have Japanese GX Ultra Premium High Class booster boxes. For Generations, we have Pokecune. So what I'm trying to say is that all of these Japanese sets have performed exceptionally better than the English counterpart. Over time, I'm just seeing the Japanese sets climb, while a lot of time the English set are just stumbling and stagnating, and it's taking them forever to really see any value growth. A big reason for that is print run. The Japanese sets are really, really tight on their print runs. They don't overprint anything. Whereas the English sets, you know, it's pedal to the metal when it comes to printing. The print runs for XY Evolutions is notoriously massive. So yeah, it turns out long-term Japanese sets just do better, tend to their lower supply line, but maybe Shiny Star V will be the exception to the rule. I doubt it, but I think Shiny Star V will be a fine set long-term. Next up, we have Theo, who asks, what is the best booster box to invest in and hold on to get a profit in a few years? That really depends on your goal, right? Because the booster box that will bring in the most profit will also be some of the most risky booster box. That's just the way it is. You don't get high profit without high risk as well. So it just depends on your goal and what your risk tolerance level is. And of course, how much income you have, because I can tell you that a base set booster box is probably gonna bring in the best return, but you're not gonna be able to buy a base set booster box because most people aren't sitting on 40 grand. So what would I say is the best booster box right now? I've stated this before, but I think right now the safest with the highest potential return booster box would be Burning Shadows, because it's just past the point of being reprinted. So it's a set that is outside of standard, will not be reprinted, still fairly cheap on the cheap side. It's got the Chase Charizard, so it's got a bunch of stuff that is going for it that I think will do well long term. A lot of people are still opening up Burning Shadows booster boxes trying to chase that Charizard, so it's just one of those sets that I think has a lot of potential. So maybe that will help you out. Just depends on what you consider the best to hold for profit, because like I said, with high risk comes high reward. So if you want higher returns, you're going to have to go with some riskier booster boxes like, say, Team Up. If Team Up doesn't get reprinted, that set is going to get you some killer returns. But the risk is maybe it does get reprinted. So that's what I'm talking about when it comes to risk versus reward. Next question comes from Siva, who says, "Hi, I've got 2 questions. You're only allowed 1. Don't you know the limit?" I'm kidding. One simple question: which sleeves do you use? I use Ultra Pro penny sleeves. They're a little bit bigger than Pokemon cards, and I think that's perfect. I like that there's a little bit of space in the Ultra Pro sleeves. I'll have a link down in the description if you want to see what they look like. Super cheap. You can buy 100 for like $2, so very affordable. What I've noticed with the sleeves that fit the Pokemon cards perfectly is that they're a little bit too tight. Sometimes I feel like it's a little bit hard to pull the cards out of their sleeves, and I risk damaging them. Ultra Pro sleeves are a little bit loose, but that is how I like it. It's very easy to sleeve them. It's very easy to take them out of the sleeves. I like the little bit of extra room with the Ultra Pro penny sleeves. Next question by Siva says, "One harder question. How do you know how much units of an individual card are in existence?" I know there are population reports on PSA, but these don't count the ungraded cards, of course. Are there any other estimates based on print runs? For example, some of the very cool guys on the Elite Forum, that's where all the cool people hang out for Pokemon collecting, has done the math on a couple of the older sets. But no, we don't have official print run numbers for any of our Pokemon card set. They don't disclose those print run numbers for obvious reason, right? Like, the Pokemon company has no incentive to tell you how many Pokemon cards they print. I have very good instinct when it comes to print run size, just basically how much I see online, how many eBay listings I'm seeing, how much of a product I'm seeing flow through stores. So I'm using a little bit of instinct and intuition when I look at set size. Sometimes I just have a feeling that a set is too large and maybe I won't pick it up as much. But in general, no, we don't have a great understanding of how large print sizes are. I can tell you right now, the print runs today are much larger than they were 2 or 3 years ago. Actually, maybe that's not true. They did really crank up the print runs a couple of years ago, dialed it down a little bit, and now they probably cranked them up again just due to the boom in Pokemon. So that is something that we have to consider going outward over the next couple of years. Next up, we have Duncan, who asked, "What was the worst Pokemon TCG investment you've ever made?" Great question, Duncan. Surprisingly, I haven't really made any terrible mistakes. I purchased some fake Pokemon cards before, if that counts as terrible Pokemon card investments. But if they were real cards, they would have been great investments. And that's something I'm a real glass half full kind of guy. So even when I make a bad investment, I still see it as a lesson learned. So I don't take it so harsh. I would say some of the worst Pokemon TCG investment I made was probably just purchasing auctions or lots of Pokemon cards that were too large for me to really handle or process. You know, at certain points in time, I was purchasing auctions or lots of Pokemon cards that were like 10,000 Pokemon cards. What am I ever going to do with 10,000 Pokemon cards? Sort through those all day? That was really tedious. I'm much more refined now, where I'm very picky about what I auction and bid on. But yeah, I would say some of the worst ones were the massive lots, because in all of it, it was mainly just commons and uncommons, and I was usually maybe like picking out 1 or 2 cards that I really enjoy from these larger auctions. And you only have so much space in your property or your house or wherever you're holding your Pokemon cards. So I try not to buy large auction lots anymore. I'll leave it to like the big box stores or whoever, or local game stores, to purchase those. But I'm much more refined now. I purchase much more smaller auctions. I would say definitely the least amount of fun I had was when I purchased massive auctions, and it was just too much for me. So yeah, those were the worst ones for sure. Next up, we have Casey, who asked, "Do you ever feel you are spending too much money on Pokemon products?" Never. That's not possible. Stay out of my business. What percent or what portion of your income do you spend on your hobbies? Okay, no, seriously. Do I ever feel like I'm spending too much money on Pokemon products? Yes, I have felt that way before. I haven't felt it in a long time, but I have felt it before, and perhaps you have as well. It's a little bit of a combination of a feeling of dread and regret on the back of your mind when you spend money that you know you shouldn't have. And that's why I recommend people to take it slow. Once you're new in the hobby, you feel really excited to just start collecting and buying everything. But right now I have a very healthy relationship with Pokemon cards and collectibles in general, where I only purchase items that I really, really enjoy. I'm only focusing on a couple of key items for my collection. I'm not really overspending. I'm not buying things that I don't like anymore. Stuff like that. What percent or what portion of your income do you spend on your hobbies? I spend a solid portion right now on collectibles, but that's mainly because nothing's happening right now. Instead of going to Disneyland, instead of going to the movies, instead of going out to dinner, instead of taking a vacation, all of those things that I might have done, I'm putting those money towards collectibles. So this is clearly one of the reasons why collectible has grown so much this year, is because money is being flowed into it where it normally would not have gone. So yeah, I'm certainly putting more money into collectibles this year than normal. So this is perhaps something that we might see a deflation on some of the Pokemon card prices once COVID is over and people are starting to spend money on other things besides collectible. But I don't think it will have a significantly detrimental impact. Prices just can't crash or go down to the prices that they once were at the start of 2020 or something like that. But yeah, I have been spending quite a bit on collectibles, but nothing too crazy. I have a very healthy investment portfolio, and certainly that's something I continue to keep up. Next up, we have Leaf, who asks, have you heard of Pretend Comedian Pikachu? Yes, I have. This card came out in late 2019 and I have a couple of copies of it. I did not go ham on this card or really go crazy on it. And a big reason for that is because Pretend Comedian Pikachu, to me, I thought that it was too tricky to be popular. The big reason is that Pretend Comedian Pikachu is very culturally different from what we see over here in the United States or other places. In Japan, they have a form of comedy where two comedians would sort of bounce jokes off each other on stage together. Their version of stand-up comedy combined with a little bit of skits. And I figured that was a little bit too different from what other countries do, right? Most countries don't have this form of comedy. It's very clearly Japanese culture, and I thought that it might not translate as well to other cultures or other countries, so that's why I didn't really purchase a lot of Pretend Comedian Pikachu. Just giving you guys a little bit of my mindset. But there were a lot of other great Pokemon cards that came out in 2019. 2019 was a great year. There were tons of great promo cards, so I really had a lot of cards to pick from. And Pretend Comedian Pikachu just wasn't high on that list. But I wanted to give you a little bit of my insight on why I didn't pick it. Next up, we have Connor, who asks, where do you see your personal collection going? Only up from here, baby. It's only up and up from here. No, seriously, I like my collection a lot. I enjoy it. Most of the pieces that you see, I don't ever plan on selling. So I don't really think too much about the prices, because if I don't sell it, what's the point of the price? It's nice to know what the price on certain items is, but I don't plan on selling most of my collection. It's my collection for a reason. A lot of my pieces I plan to keep for really long term. And right now, I'm very happy with my collection. I'm currently looking for a couple of pieces. I'm still chasing a couple of cards. I'm always looking for some nice PSA 10 sets that I'm currently chasing. I've discussed them in a couple of other videos, but that's just part of the fun. That's part of the chase. That's part of the interest for me, is trying to get some of the new modern cards in PSA 10, because I'm pretty much satisfied with my vintage collection. A lot of people are really stuck with vintage, you know. There are some people who are do or die vintage. They'll only ever collect vintage. But to me, I like to evolve as a collector. My interest certainly changes over time. So I am satisfied with my vintage collection. I don't have a lot of graded cards from some of the modern sets or some of the modern promos. So that's why you see me chasing after a couple of them, like the Armor Mewtwo, like the Tag Team GX Gold cards. Those are some of the cards that I'm currently chasing PSA 10 copies of, and hopefully I'll get them someday, but that's just part of the hobbies, that's just part of the fun, is having a little bit of a challenge. That's something I can constantly go for. So slowly, yeah, my collection is still growing. It's not something I'm gonna ever stop, and I'm enjoying it, I'm having fun, and I think you guys are as well. So thank you so much for joining with me on this journey. Next question comes from Herbs Lopez, who asks, do you think buying full art trainer waifu cards are a good investment? Full art trainer waifu cards. I'm assuming you're talking about the full art trainer cards like Misty's Determination, the Lily card, the Nessa cards like that. I actually, and I'll be honest here, I actually don't collect full art trainer cards. I mainly focus on the Pokemon because I think long term, the popularity of the trainers sort of dwindles. Even classics like Misty's don't do that well long term. Most people, like most children nowadays who are collecting Pokemon cards, don't know who Misty is. They're collecting Lily or they're collecting Marnie. So that's why I don't focus on the trainers. There's just too many trainers and they sort of come and go. But the Pokemon are sort of forever. No matter who you are collecting, you always know Pikachu and Charizard. That's why I really focus on some of the more recognizable Pokemon. So I don't really focus on the trainer, but some of the trainer cards are doing really, really well. Everyone knows how solid the full art Lily card is doing. That card is going for quite a bit of money right now. And if you're into full art trainer cards, having a collection of full art trainers, I think, is a really solid collection. That's honestly something I'm a little bit jealous of. I kind of wish I did collect them, but it's just not my space. But I think it is a nice space that could do really well long term. We have our final question come from us from Pokelight, who asked, what do you think about price drops? Is now the time to invest? Sort of. Like I said, I don't like to time the market. The best time to collect something is probably the present. Whenever you feel like the right time is for you is totally fine. It's not something I'm waiting on, you know, like I'm not waiting for the market to crash so I can just purchase a ton of cards. I'm slowly accumulating cards right now, and I'm not really focusing on timing, right? If I see a card I like and I think the price is reasonable for current market prices, and that's when I go for. I focus on what the present price is, because it's very difficult to say, well, in a month it'll be cheaper or in a month it'll be more expensive. That's much more stuff that will keep you up at night, and that's not something that I want. I'm very healthy in just being focused on purchasing stuff in the present. So right now, if I have a card that I like and I think the price is reasonable, then I go in on it. The best time to collect something is probably the present. It can't be the past. In the future, you might regret it. So the best time to collect, I always say, is the present. All right, everybody, that's the end of today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Do you have any extra insights, or do you agree or disagree with any of my answers on the questions in today's video? I know a lot of you guys asked questions that I was not able to fully reply to. Give me a chance over the next couple of days. When I have some time, I'll definitely go back to the question and answer as many as I can to you personally. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.